Hi, buenas noches, ¿cómo están? It's so great to have someone like Soledad pronounce my name right. You know? Only at a Latino scholarship dinner would someone say Quiñones the way it should be pronounced. I've been called everything else. The other day I was in San Antonio at a street festival, and this blonde-haired girl came up to me and she said, "Oh, I love your reporting. I love all these What Would You Do series, and I watch them all the time, and I TiVo them, and can I take a picture with you, Mr. Cojones?" I didn't know whether to take that as a compliment or an insult. That's right, I'm Mr. Cojones. Thank you very much. All right. In 2003, NAHJ launched this campaign of theirs called Parity, which is a $12.6 million 5-year fundraising initiative. And the goal is to increase the number of Latinos in America's newsroom. You know, I was at ABC the other day, and I looked around the newsroom, and I tried to identify the Latino journalists, and there were only, among 150 producers, only 2 of them were Hispanic. In a day when, you know, we are changing the very face of America, we have 2 Latino producers. These are the people who come up with story ideas, who help me formulate what we might cover, who pitch things to the network. It's an embarrassment, and ABC should be ashamed, and we are here to change that tonight. And that's why NAHJ is now entering the final year of campaign, which focuses on a couple of things. Among them, providing scholarships and internships to increase the pipeline of young journalists, students going into the field. The education and professional development to develop and support the retention and advancement of Latino journalists. Increased advocacy to promote fair coverage of our Latino communities. The establishment of partnerships with the media companies to create new opportunities for Latinos and other journalists of color in the nation's newsrooms through the innovative Parity Project. Last year marked 25 years that a group of Latino journalists first met in San Diego to create what has become the National Association of Hispanic Journalists. To commemorate that special year, NAHJ created a 25th anniversary fund seeking to raise $250,000 from members and supporters like you between now and December 31st of 2008. In addition, we had just last year, our first student alumni reception, which brought together past participants from our student projects and scholarship recipients, and to celebrate the work and the results of our most meaningful programs. Each person who has donated $2,500 or more will be recognized as a 25th anniversary angel. In addition, they'll be automatically given a lifetime membership to NAHJ. The first 25 people who donated that much or are donating that much or more will receive a complimentary registration, by the way, to the Unity Conference in 2008 in Chicago, July 23rd to July 27th of 2008. On behalf of NAHJ, I want to give a special thank you to our 25th anniversary angels, and that's what we call them, their names. We need your support to sustain and expand our efforts to increase the number of Latinos in America's newsrooms. Pull out your checkbook or your credit card and invest in NAHJ's work tonight. The reason I support NAHJ, and I have for more than 20 years, is because when I was a young Chicano in San Antonio, Texas, growing up in the barrio, the son of migrant farm workers, we actually picked cherries in Michigan and tomatoes in Ohio when I was 13 years old. But I had a dream, and that sueño was to be a journalist. And my inspiration was a man who's here with us tonight. Geraldo Rivera was on ABC on 2020. You talk about... He's not much older than I am, but already he was kicking ass on 2020, doing all kinds of incredible stories, and I would look up to him, and I would dream of someday working on 2020, and guess what? The dream came true. I now work for the news magazines at ABC, so it is possible. But it wouldn't have been possible had it not been for a group of Chicano activists in San Antonio back in the 1970s who decided, and their name was the Bilingual Bicultural Coalition on the Mass Media. They call themselves the BBC. And there were brown berets in San Antonio, and there were these radical Mexicans who decided that they were pissed off because in San Antonio, Texas, where the population is 60% Mexican-American, there were hardly any brown faces on television or voices on the radio. So they decided, this group of Latinos, the BBC, that they would challenge the licenses of the local radio stations and TV stations, and that they would confront the FCC and say, you should not renew the licenses of these media companies in San Antonio because they're not hiring a staff that's representative of their audience. And of course, they panicked, these owners of these TV and radio stations. They started looking for any Chicano they could find. And I was delivering drugs. Not those kind of drugs. I was working at a pharmacy, driving an old beat-up Volkswagen. And the owner of the pharmacy, this Chicano guy, Richard Tijerina, said, you know, are you interested in broadcasting? I hear you're interested in broadcasting. I said, I want to be a reporter just like Geraldo Rivera. He said, well, I know this country music station that's desperately looking to up their numbers of Latinos. And I hated country music, but what the hell? It was a job. And I was hired as an intern at the age of 19 at a KKYX radio in San Antonio. You got to be from Texas to understand this, but the DJs had horses at the back of the radio station that they would use in rodeos and public appearances and parades. My job as an intern was to feed the horses first. I swear to God, it's an honest, $2 an hour. But then at night, I would sneak into the control room, and I had a very heavy Mexican accent. I mean, I couldn't say, I'd say chert and choose, and, you know, Mexicans, we don't have an SH sound in English, in Spanish. So I worked on my delivery. So I would take these newspapers, and I would go into the control room at midnight, and I would record my voice, and I would play it back. And at that hour of the night, there was only one guy who could criticize me, who could give me his input, and he was Pablo, the janitor. So I swear to God, Pablo, I would pull him in and say, Pablo, what do you think? Listen to this, man. What do you, ¿Cómo se oye? How does it sound? And he would go, ¿se oye bien? Más o menos. I owe everything to Pablo, but I also owe everything to the BBC, which was the predecessor to NAHJ. They were the ones who made these stations take notice. We don't have the BBC in San Antonio anymore. We need people like that. There is very little activism, as you know, very few protests against this war in our streets. And we need an organization like this, and we have to give ourselves to make sure that these young Latino students will populate the newsrooms of America, and instead of 2 producers at ABC, will give us many more. So I hope that you donate tonight. I know I will. It will all become angels, okay?